Hey, Chad, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, good. Well, I know a little bit about you. I got to meet you uh, through networking and wanted to chat with you a little bit more. I'm super intrigued by what you're doing and the services that you offer. And I would love to have you tell our listeners a little bit about you.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right. So tell me a little bit first about who Chad is and what made you become an entrepreneur.
Um, so I don't know. I think myself more of like a serial entrepreneur just because I've had so many different opportunities to work in different companies and do different things. And I always found myself becoming very a quick study, if you will, becoming very, very good at whatever I put my mind to or whatever I decided to try and do. Because I was very analytical, almost overly analytical. And I would be able to dissect each component of the job and find the efficiencies and find the improvements that I could make and just kind of process map everything I did. And after doing lots of different types of jobs and starting lots of different types of businesses, it took me almost 20 years before I finally found the one that I really liked. And ironically enough, it was just my business now is I love to help startup businesses. I love
Yeah.
to help those guys that are self-employed, solopreneur kind of guys that are struggling because they're in the same boat I was, years ago where they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to make it work, but maybe they don't have the analytical mind like I do, and they
Right.
can't see the forest for the trees. So I love to be able to
Mm-hmm.
step in, take a bird's eye view, and then just kind of help them process map out what we need to automate, what we need to integrate, what do we need to delegate, or what do we need to eliminate completely. And then just
Right.
help them get started. So, yeah, as far as what about Chadwick Taylor and what I do and more about me, yeah, I don't know. It's I'm kind of a nerdy, geeky, introverted, but yet social and outgoing kind of guy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a musician. I grew up playing in the orchestra. I played the string bass, the violin. Taught myself how to play the piano my sophomore year in high school, which is a little funny story, I guess. I played the bass in the jazz band, and after every concert and after every, everything we did, every performance, all the girls would rush over to the piano guy. And they would always want to, oh, come play me a song, piano man, and they, hey, play me a little
Mm-hmm.
twinkle. Can you play this song? Can you play that song? And they'd always want to, listen to him play. And I'm thinking to myself, I got to learn how to play the piano so I can get some of these girls to be interested in me, right? So I spent years, 2 years, an hour a day, 2 hours a day, teaching myself how to play piano. Senior year in high school, I'm playing the piano at the jazz band thing. We're doing the concert, and after the concert, all the girls rush over to the guitar player. And I'm like, wait a minute. I just worked really hard to learn how to play piano here. And they swarmed him. So apparently, I was the common denominator, not the instrument itself. So who knew? But that's a little bit about me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, you said you're a serial entrepreneur, but kind of what started that initial journey for you? Like, when did you get that bug?
Well, what's funny is I'd probably always had it. I just never knew it until later in life, when I was about 26, 27. Earlier, I started working at Burger King at 15 years old, and uh, I was a lousy employee because I was always finding out what was wrong with the job and trying to fix it. I was that fixer guy.
Yeah.
Always trying to improve the processes and the efficiencies, and always just trying to make sure everything was easier, not harder. Like I was always the work smarter, not harder kind of guy. Um, so I went from Burger King, and then I went on to construction and concrete, and I did a bunch of jobs in high school, and I worked just a lot of different things. But I was always not that I didn't want to work; it was just that I didn't want to work harder than I needed to, if that makes sense. So I was a very lousy employee. I had a lot of medical issues. I was always calling in sick to work and stuff too. So anyway, long story short, I just decided one day that it was going to be easier to work for myself, and I could control my own time and my own schedule and my own revenue. And, I got into sales when I was 18, 19 years old. And then went on a mission and in Alabama, of all places. So I sold religion in the buckle of the Bible Belt, if you know what I mean. So it really taught me how to how to be how to connect with people on an emotional level, and it really helped to raise my emotional intelligence to where I could understand people and connect internally with them, if that makes sense. And through that experience and through sales and teaching myself more that being a salesman does not mean you sell stuff. Being a salesman means you're an educator and you empower people to make good decisions on what they need to buy. And for me, connecting with people on that sort of a level, personal, emotional level, and helping them see the light as far as here's your options, here's what they want to buy, etc. That's what really drove me to be this. I can do this. I can help people and be my own boss and just look for opportunities to sell stuff. And that was the first, I guess, bug that I caught with the entrepreneurism. Was started off as a sales guy, started selling real estate, started flipping houses. We started selling just about anything you can imagine. Years ago, we were flipping houses in 2008 hit and lost that opportunity very quickly. And thought, I should probably learn a little bit more about finance and about business and about all these things. So I went back to school in 2008 and 9 and went in to learn about finance. And then after I was done, I started a small little financial planning practice here, actually in Kuna. And we opened up a little office out there in Kuna. And after a couple of years, it went really well to the point where we needed to hire and train and grow. And I quickly ran into that next wall of, hey, I'm big enough that I need help, but I can't afford the help. I can't afford to just outsource all of these things. And I'm tired of wearing all the hats. So that's when we started the service center. It was more out of necessity for what I needed in my business, not realizing that every other small entrepreneur out there was in the same boat. And man, we just found a little niche market, and it just exploded. So here we are today.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely what intrigued me when I had the opportunity to kind of hear your 60-second, push is, this is a service that literally almost every single entrepreneur in that I've created something, it's getting bigger. I can't do it all on my own, but I really, really want to, to continue to move to the next level, to be able to scale. How can I do that without having a full-time employee and all of the costs that are associated with that?
Right. And liability and all the other stuff.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit more about what all your service center offers.
Okay. We, I guess to give you more backstory, because it kind of helps explain what we do when you understand the why we do what we do first. So we started off, again, a small little financial firm, needed help, not necessarily answering phones all the time, but I needed help with a lot of the back office kind of things, filing, data entry, things like that. I went to lunch with a friend of mine who owned a business here in Boise, and he had the exact opposite problem. He had very little paperwork to do, but he had 1 million phone calls a day coming in. In fact, we went to lunch and we sat there for an hour and a half, and I don't think we said 5 words between each other because he was always on the phone. Oh, I got to take this. Oh, I got to take this. Just call after call after call. And I just looked at him and I said, dude, I'm not buying you lunch ever again because this is ridiculous. I'm eating by myself here, and it's costing me double. So I just kind of almost jokingly said, why don't you just forward your calls to my office? Because I've got these gals sitting here that are staring out the window 80% of the day anyway. Why don't you just forward calls to them and we'll train them, and then we'll just split the cost of the employee kind of thing. Again, half jokingly, but at the same time, I was just more mad that he wasn't paying me attention during our lunch meeting. So he actually took me up. He said, that'd be a great idea if we could make it work. And I'm like, well, I don't see why we couldn't. I mean, I don't know that it exists. And at the time, I had no idea that anything like this ever existed. But So he did. We started having him forward calls. We split the cost, not right down the middle, but I charged him a little bit, and it worked so well for him. A couple other guys heard about it and wanted to get on board. And then one morning, after weeks or so doing this, I woke up at like that 3 o'clock in the morning. Epiphany kind of hit me had a dream kind of a thing. And then I woke up and I was like, wait a minute, if this works really well for 5 of us, why wouldn't this work for 50 of us? And then it was like, well, if we could scale to 50, why couldn't we scale to 500 or 5,000 people? Or, I mean, when does it stop, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that tiny little office in Cuna, we hired a couple of gals, we tried it out, and it worked so well that we outgrew that office within a matter of months and had to go 100% work from home, all remote. And that was just when we were answering phones 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
As we were growing, I would always ask 2 questions. One was, what do we need next as a small business? What does our need look like? And I'd always, you'd answer bookkeeping. Okay, I can't do the bookkeeping anymore. I need somebody to do bookkeeping. I can't do the payroll anymore. I got somebody to do payroll, right? So what do we need next as a small business as we grow? And then I'd always follow that up with, how can we offer that as a service to our clients and then become that full service support staff? Because if we're already doing phones and then we're already doing all of these other little things, we're basically there for them and they trust us, they like us. Not that much of a stretch to think we could learn how to do these other things and offer that to them as well for that fractional rate that we were charging them for everything else too. So we just started adding, slowly but surely, we started adding little divisions for accounting, bookkeeping, web design, graphic design, some basic help desk kind of IT help, right? And tax filing, you name it, just anything a small business needs, from here's how we could screen some applicants for doing interviews, or all the way to, hey, we'll be like a fractional CFO kind of thing. And then we grew and grew and grew on our hours. So now we're 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday. One of the things that I wanted at the very beginning, I wanted to make sure that we did, was that we didn't want to have to be open on Sunday.
Yeah.
But then we do have a lot of clients that are like HVAC companies or plumbers who need those emergency calls, disaster cleanup companies, and those kind of folks. So we do have an on-call option for them. But the idea was just from that little lunch meeting that I was irritated because he wasn't paying me any attention, and my own need for our business, it kind of spawned into a world of virtual receptionists and virtual assistants that can do just about anything for a business other than sit in their office for them and greet people as they come in. We are working on that, however, with our little video virtual receptionist technology that we're coming out with. So one of these days you'll walk into a chiropractic office or a doctor's office or somebody, attorney, for example, and there'll be like a TV or an iPad or something on the screen. You push the button and our virtual receptionist will actually appear on a video call and greet people as they come in the door. But that's down the road kind of way.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we do, what we offer. We put the human touch back into customer service. No automated systems, no push one for this or that. We can, but we typically just like have it go straight through to a representative and have somebody there to answer the phone every time. The name of the game today with small business, especially the guys that are wearing all the hats and never answering their phone and their voicemail is always full. You guys know who you are. But for those kind of guys, if whoever answers the phone first wins the sale, right? Whoever picks up the phone is going to win, and then they'll check all the references and do all that stuff later on. But they first off, they just want to make sure you can be there and take care of them. So that's what we do. We pick up the phone, we capture every lead, we serve every customer, we give that small, self-employed, small business the fighting chance to compete with the big guys now, because now they can offer the same level of customer service that Verizon and the big boys can. Anyway, that's just a little bit about who we are, what we do, and how we do it.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's so funny because as you're talking, I was referencing back in my mind to an interview between Tom Bilyeu was interviewing the one of the co-founders of ClickFunnels this morning, and he was talking about the same thing. He's like, I didn't create ClickFunnels to sell to a whole bunch of people. I found a problem and tried to figure out what the best solution was for that, and then created a product to solve the problem,
Yep.
which is exactly what you did. It was completely backwards engineered, which I think is ingenious.
Right. A little selfish maybe at first, but once I realized everybody else needed it too, I'm like, okay, fine, we'll give it to everybody.
Right.
But
We'll share. We'll
yeah,
share.
we'll share. Why not? Why not?
I love it. I love it. Um, so what, outside of work, I always like to find out what people have as their passion project. Is there something outside of your day-to-day work that keeps your attention?
You know, I work about 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. So there's not a lot of free time to just do anything else on the side. But I do have a lot of passions that I'd love to get into one day here soon. I love music, and I love music is a huge part of my life. I love teaching music. It's very hard, like my kids, for example, who don't listen to me about anything else. It's very hard to teach them how to play music. So I'd really love to teach people how to play by ear, because that's how I play. I can read music, sort of. I can't sight read music, you know what I mean? But I would love to help people understand music theory and how music's created, and how to play just about any instrument they pick up, just because they can kind of tinker with it and pick it apart and play it. I'm also pretty big on the outdoors. I love scouting programs and camping and hunting and fishing and just about anything you can do outside. So service projects for like trails and clearing paths and doing all the hiking and things like that. Big passion for me. And another project, I love to work with special needs children. So I tend to volunteer a lot for different programs here in town, and I've worked a lot with special needs families for the financial planning side, as well as just helping them out, because I have some family and friends who are special needs, and I love seeing the amount of effort that they have to put in, like their parents and everybody who takes care of them. Is just unreal, and the stress load that it adds to their family. So if anything I can do to help with special needs families to help ease their burden, I'm all for it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a lot of passions, but those are my top three.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, just like most entrepreneurs, once you kind of have that bug, a lot of things get incorporated into that. It doesn't just surround work. It surrounds, how you do things basically in your life, how you do things with your family versus how you work versus how your passion projects work. I think all of that comes from that same desire that's deep down. So that's awesome.
Absolutely.
To stay on track, obviously, you said you're working like 15, 16 hours a day. What are some of the habits that you have that keep you on track and focused?
It's a very good question. So my one of the things I'd like to reference there was the 7 Habits for Highly Effective People, Stephen R. Covey. It's a great book. I don't follow very many of those. I try, I really do, but I tend to get distracted very easily. And self-diagnosed ADD, if you will, just because I could never remember to go down and get diagnosed. I'd always miss the appointments. But I follow the same kind of principles, though, as that Millionaire Next Door, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Typically on a day for me, I'll wake up very early in the morning, around 5 or 6 o'clock, and do some meditation, do some listening to some music, whether I play it or not, just listening to some music and just kind of set the mood. One thing in particular that I do that people are often surprised at is I have an affirmations CD that I listen to every day of my own voice that just reminds me that I'm pretty darn cool and that I can do it, and I remind myself that I can and deserve to be loved. And I think we are our own worst enemies. Most of the time, the negative thoughts that we have in our heads come from ourselves, of self-doubt and self-deprecation, self-destruction, those kind of things. So for me, just having a quick little 2-minute affirmation of, you are always more than enough, and everything you do brings prosperity to others, and everything they do brings prosperity to you. And just little statements like that where I remind myself that I am important. I am enough. I'm always more than enough. That helps a lot to really set the mood. And I think it reminds me of one of those talks, the commencement addresses that one of the guys gave at the college, who was some military man, and he said, you got to make your bed every morning. And if you make your bed every morning, then when you get home at night, even if you've had a really bad day, your bed is made, and it helps to instill that positive mental awareness of what you can be optimistic. You can be positive. So I try to start the day off right. My morning routine is essential. If I miss my morning routine, the rest of the day goes to garbage. So that's probably the first and foremost most important habit that I instill every day. I'm not much of a reader per se. I do love audiobooks. I'm the kind of guy that would read 3 or 4 pages and then realize that I had just read 3 or 4 pages and not remembered a single word that I had just read. But I can drive for an hour and listen to an audiobook, and because I have the distraction in front of me of the road, now I realize that may sound dangerous if the road is the distraction, but if I'm focused and concentrated on driving and I can hear the audio, I tend to capture a lot more of the book and the concept. So I love listening to audiobooks, especially the ones where they're narrated by the author themselves. And some of those, because they always add those little things that they don't put in the book. They're the little personal touches that they throw in there. So I love listening to audiobooks and playing music. I try to take my wife on a date every Friday night, but although the last couple of weeks have been a little tricky for that, so we tend to do more of a date in-house. But anyway, a lot of bad habits. I could tell you about those. They're not very helpful.
Yes, we all have a few of those, I'm positive.
I have a very addictive personality. I think when I find something that I find even a hint of passion at, I tend to just cling on to it really, really hard, like work, for example. If I find something at work that I love, it's good luck getting me away from it. So I tend to stay away from like alcohol. I've never had a sip of alcohol in my life, just because I think I would probably immediately become addicted and you'd never see me again, I know that about myself, so I try to stay away from it. Same with tobacco. There's just a lot of things that I'm like, I don't want to lose control of my faculties ever. People tell me that all the time that I'd be a really fun guy if I was drunk at a party. And then they're like, you wouldn't remember it the next day. And I'd be like, then why would I want to do that?
Right.
I could get in myself a lot of trouble if I did things that I already get in a lot of trouble. So I don't need any help with that.
You're like, please don't help. Thank you.
Yeah, no thanks. I was the number 2 child growing up. I don't know if I'm sharing too much now, but so I developed a lot of bad habits early on in life. And typically the number 2 child is the reason that the rules are created. The oldest child is the one who creates the rules because they're the ones that tattle, and mom and dad, they have to come in and enforce them. But I was the number 2 child. I was the reason that the rules were created, and then my younger sisters, the rules didn't apply to them because they were the younger sisters. So I was the one that had to get disciplined all the time. And I was a little dumb at first when I was a kid. I used to write my own name on the walls and everywhere in the house until I learned that if I wanted to get my brother in trouble, I could write his name on the wall. The problem was I didn't know how to spell his name, and so that gave it away. But I was always that mischievous kid. When I was, in fact, just to prove the story or prove the idea here, when I was 6 years old, I may have been 5 or 6 years old, I went to the doctor with my mom, and the doctor was trying to include me in conversation, and he very politely asked, what's your name, young man? Of course, he probably knew who I was and all that, but he was just trying to be nice and engage me in conversation. So he asked me, what's your name, young man? And I just simply looked at him and I said, Chad, don't, because I thought that that's what my name was when I was 5 years old. And it explains a lot, because when people would call me by my name that I thought was my name, and then they would tell me to do something, I would go and do it. So they'd say, Chad, don't, go do this thing, right? They say, Chad, don't touch the stove. Okay. And I was just thinking that my name was Chad Don't, and they're telling me to do something. So whatever they told me not to do, I would do it every time. That's why. If my mom's listening, I'm innocent. That's exactly
I'm
why.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. We all have those. We all have those little stories. I
I've got a
was. I
lot more,
was.
but we don't have time for that.
I was number 8 out of 9.
Ooh,
So,
wow.
yeah, I'm not really sure what happened to all the ones ahead of me, but there was a 12-year span between me and the next youngest child. So I think they had learned some things with the first 7, and then I came along, and then my little sister was 2.5 years after me, and I was definitely in charge of both activities, punishments, all the things. All
Yep.
the things rested right on me. If
Yeah,
she did something, it was because I must have taught her to.
of
So,
course.
so I totally
Of
get that.
course.
Totally get that.
It's
You talked a little bit about date night with your wife. So that's obviously something that is a non-negotiable for you. What else in your life, that personal or business, is absolutely non-negotiable?
Ooh, it's a good question. We have family night once a week, and it's usually on a Sunday or a Monday night. So I have 3 boys that are 16, 11, and 8 years old. And yeah, so we try to spend at least one night a week where we're just playing games and getting off the screens so that we can actually spend time playing cards or something productive. And that's non-negotiable. That's my way of, I may only get 4 or 5 hours of free time to myself each week,
Yeah.
um, but I'm willing to give it up to make sure that my kids, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when they start raising their own families, they have those basic principles instilled in them. So we spend a lot of time as a family learning things like, this is going back to the over analytical part of my brain. We do a lot of drills in our house. I would say I'm a doomsday prepper by any means, but we have a lot of, food storage prepared and things set aside for rainy day stuff. But every now and then, once a quarter or every couple of months, I'll sneak down into the house and then 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'll turn on the smoke detector with, just pushing the little button and just see what my kids do, because I want to make sure that they're following the plan that we put into place to make sure that they get up and go outside and go to the shed or whatever the plan is, right? So we do those kind of quirky things. If you drove by the house, you'd probably look out the window and you say, well, these guys are super redneck, which is fine. We are. I'm again going back to, I'm a fixer, right? I'm a tinkerer. I love to create, build, design, and just kind of slap together some sort of a fix for whatever problem I'm facing. So, for example, you drive by the house, you're going to see a little like 28 by or 30 by 30 foot shop out on the back of our house. And outside on the back of the shop, there is a giant 10 foot by 20 foot movie screen that we built on the barn, and we have an outdoor theater out there. It is
Yeah.
the most redneck looking outdoor theater with lawn chairs and a metal pole with a projector on it that you could imagine. But it works just the same as any other movie theater with 9.1 Dolby Digital surround and all that other stuff. So it's functionality wise is the same. I really don't care how things look, and that really does kind of help portray my mentality as far as I don't care what people think about me, because I know in my own heart, my own mind, that I'm more than enough. And
Yeah.
maybe that goes back to the affirmations there too. But that's one of the non-negotiable things is in personal life, we spend time together as a family. Family is the most important thing. We don't degrade anybody. We don't talk down about people or to people. In business wise, same thing. We have a very strict cultural value statement that basically means you cannot negatively talk about somebody else. You can complain all you want, but you can't just complain without presenting some sort of a solution.
Mm.
And I teach my boys that too. If you're going to come to me and you're going to tell me, hey, this thing's not working, or it's broken, or this is stupid, or I don't want to do this, and blah, blah, blah. If you're not immediately backing it up with your proposed solution for how you would want it to be, you're going to get a lecture. And they know that well enough now. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just to back it up a little bit, because I'm the wife and I have a tinkerer husband,
Yeah.
maybe not to your extent, but quite a bit. But do you warn the wife before you're going to set off the alarms first, or do you like to test her too?
It depends on if she remembers me saying it or not. Because usually I'll forget to tell her, but my wife and I have a very unique relationship where I think I told her, but I didn't. She'll forget even if I did tell her. So I can usually get away with me saying, I'm pretty sure I told you, and she'll go, well, I must have forgotten then, even though there's no way I ever told her.
So it works.
So it works just fine. Yeah, it works just fine. It's just as much as a surprise for her as it is for the boys. And sometimes that's intentional. Other times it's just because I forgot to tell her, or I thought she was awake and she wasn't. I don't know. But yeah, occasionally I'll let her in on the little secret, and sometimes not. Sometimes I'll just test her as well. So.
Nice. So what if you were going to give an entrepreneur one piece of advice when they were going into business, what would that be?
One piece of advice would be get more advice. Get as much advice as you can. Don't just settle for one piece of advice. But gosh, surround yourself with a support team that will guide you through no matter what circumstances may come, and a support team that is comprised of your spouse, if you have one, employees, if you need them, right? But most importantly, just somebody that you can have as a sounding board to bounce ideas off of, vent your frustrations to. It doesn't necessarily have to be a business partner in the business itself, but a partner, somebody that can understand where you're coming from, somebody that can appreciate, have experience as far as where you've been and where you're wanting to go. Almost just basically like a coach. Have a coach, somebody on your team that you can have as an accountability partner. But that support team is going to be what either makes or breaks your business. If you're starting a brand new business and you have no support team, it's not impossible to make it. But is it worthwhile if you get to the end of success and you have no one there to share it with? So that would be my best advice, is to, at the very beginning, surround yourself with people who will not only support you today, but throughout the entire journey, and be there with you at the end to share in your success.
Yeah, I absolutely 100% agree. I'm constantly, talking to clients and saying, who is your running partner in this phase of this business? You have to have a running partner in each phase. And that doesn't have to be the same person. It can change from time to time. It depends on what's going on, what your circumstances are. But I think that's so, so, so important to have that person that you can really rely on.
Think of Michael Jordan, for example. Michael Jordan, when he first got started playing basketball, who was his coach? His coach was his dad, right? And his dad was never a professional basketball coach, so he wasn't able to grow with Michael Jordan the whole way, right? Can you imagine if Michael Jordan had never upgraded coaches and had never traded out his support team, right, to get to the next level? He'd still be shooting free throws in his driveway with his dad on the evenings, because you will outgrow. I wouldn't say outgrow, but you will need more experience, more different types of advice and help. So be prepared for that. But sure, at the very beginning, you got to get used to surrounding yourself with the people who are there for your skills, the people who are there to help train you and hone your skills, and then the people who are there for your emotional support as well.
Mm-hmm.
Emotional support can be people that stay with you forever. Your business coaches, your other coaches who are to help, enhance and hone your skills. You'll outgrow them hopefully as quickly as you can, so that you can move on to the next level and the next level. But yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. How people can reach you, the service center, how can they enroll in your services or talk to someone? What's the best way to make that happen?
I would highly recommend talking to either myself or one of our sales team. You can reach out by going to www.servicecenterpro.com, or just shoot an email over to customerservice@servicecenterpro.com or info@servicecenterpro.com. You can call us at 1-800-747-8939, and be glad to take your call. Book an appointment with myself or one of our team. And first and foremost, we just need to have a conversation to see where you're at, what needs you have, if we're able to help with those needs, and if we're a right fit or not. If we are a right fit, great. We'll see what the next steps are, right? If we're not a right fit, that's fine too. Not everybody's a good fit for us, and we're not a good fit for everybody. So we're really only after that small self-employed business owner who's big enough that they're like, okay, I can no longer do this on my own. I can't physically wear all these hats anymore. I'm tired. And maybe you got into business to do one thing because you were really good at plumbing, for example, and your boss was like, you know what, you're so good, you need to go do your own thing. And you're like, I do want to go do my own thing. I want to be my own boss. And now that you're there, you're like, this is hard. This is really difficult. You got to run an entire business. If you're at that point, you're probably at the right point to call.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the easiest way to get a hold of us is give us a call, shoot us a text, email, whatever. Find us on Facebook.
Yeah, we'll definitely have all the contact information in the show notes as well, so people can get a hold of you there. And for my last question, because it's my favorite, how do you give back? Oh,
I give back in a lot of ways. Monetarily, I always give 10% of my income to my church. I also give to a Rotary Club here in town through donations, not just in money, but also in time. I try to volunteer at least a couple hours a week, giving back to the community here locally, helping with service projects, rake the town, you name it. And I get my kids involved too, which one day they'll thank me for, I'm told. It hasn't happened yet, but one day they may thank me for it. So there's that. Yeah, I love helping people. A lot of times, to my fault, I tend to help people for free, and my staff usually says, "Why didn't you charge them? They were willing to pay. That's what we do for a living. Obviously, we're supposed to charge them." I'm like, "Yeah, but they needed the help, and I wasn't doing much today, so I just help them."
Right.
However I can, I always try to look for opportunities to serve, and if I find an opportunity. I love feeling that feeling of I contributed in a way that nobody else could during that moment right then and there, and made an impact in somebody's life. So any chance I get to make an impact in somebody's life, whether it's on a regular basis or just one time and I've never seen them again, it's fine. I take them as they come.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know in your business, you're definitely giving back a service that so many entrepreneurs are dying to have. So there's definitely, even the stuff where you're making money, you're definitely giving back.
Yeah. And we tend to discount our prices a lot just to help people out. So it's, don't hesitate to call. Even if you think you can't afford it, we'll probably help you out anyway. So.
Fantastic. Well, it was so great having you on the show today. I really loved getting to know you a little bit better, and I'm sure we will talk again soon.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the My WHIM Life show today. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a moment of the goodness.